Good morning, Andy. How you doing?
Good morning.
Yeah, I appreciate you. This is Wimp, and my son Barry is on, who worked for Dave Oldham for a long time, and I appreciate you taking 5 or 6 minutes to be on our show.
I appreciate you calling me.
I enjoy your thoughts on ESPN and on television. I guess my first thing with Syracuse losing by 1 to Pitt, and the word out that Boeheim is going to have to take his medicine, and him saying that the 9-game suspension was enough to give them a chance to get back in the NCAA tournament. Do you have any feeling on that?
Well, first of all, Joe Castiglione, who's the committee chair this year, he made it clear that they're going to look at what their record was and how they fared without Boeheim, and they were 4-5 without him. But it's not going to be a deciding factor, but they're going to at least look at that and include it, in their evaluation of Syracuse. The problem with that, well, a couple things. First of all, you were in the NCAA, at an NCAA member school for a long time, so you know how this works, that the Committee on Infractions is different than the selection committee. I mean, these are, could be a faculty rep, could be an athletic director, could be a law professor. I mean, these people have nothing to do with the selection committee. It's not like the Committee on Infractions is coordinating with the selection committee about how they should handle things.
Good point. Good point.
Completely different entities. And, I think sometimes the public thinks that the NCAA works like, the NBA or the NFL, that it's one office with one set of guidelines and one set of rules and almost like one voice speaking for it. That's not the case at all. And so I don't think there's any correlation between the two where they would say, well, what's the point of having him be suspended if he's going to be on if they're going to use that in terms of the NCAA tournament. So I think it's totally different things.
Okay.
Here's the problem with even looking at that argument, because first of all, they didn't finish strong. So there's a body of work that they can look at, since he came back, that is just okay. I mean, yes, they're a better team when he's coaching, obviously. He's a Hall of Famer. But it's not like it's night and day difference. They struggled without him, and now they've struggled with him. And so that's why I don't think it will necessarily sway it either way. They're right on the bubble. I think they're good enough to be in the field, but it's going to come down to which teams are with them in the final vote.
Okay, that's good stuff there. I see the point there. Certainly Miami and Virginia Tech. Miami is certainly in a little bit bigger way than Virginia Tech, but I'm really proud of Buzz's team. He's been a friend a long time, and Jim has too at Miami. So you might just speak of those two guys, those two programs getting themselves in a position that I don't know that Virginia Tech's going to make the NCAA, but I think those are maybe two a little bit surprise teams in the league this year.
Well, I would agree with you on Virginia Tech. I wouldn't necessarily think Miami's a surprise.
Okay.
In that, they've got a veteran team, a couple of transfers from the Big 12 in McClellan and Rodriguez. Tanya Jakira is certainly one of the better big men.
You're right.
Certainly defensively. And I think they thought they would be this good. And I've talked to Jim about this. I mean, he thought that they could win the ACC, and they may. The Virginia Tech situation, that's definitely a surprise. And Buzz has definitely turned this quicker than I think, most people thought. But at the same time, you shouldn't be surprised because of what he was able to do, at Marquette in terms of trying to keep up what Tom Green had built.
Yeah, Barry.
We're talking with Andy Katz with ESPN. Andy, answer this for me. How difficult is it for the committee now, with the conferences being so big? You used to just look at everybody's record and kind of see where their record was, but now you have the unbalanced schedules within the conference. So where a team may have a bunch of wins, but they played the lower tier teams twice as opposed to once. Does the committee just look at the teams individually now? And does the unbalanced schedules make it their job more difficult?
Yeah, I think it makes it more difficult because, and I think Ohio State's a great example of this. So Ohio State has 11 Big Ten wins, and in years past, if you saw a Big Ten team with 11 Big Ten wins, you wouldn't even hesitate. You'd say that team is in the NCAA tournament, no question. Done. Not the case for Ohio State, because 9 of those 11 wins came against the bottom of the league that won't be in the NCAA tournament, and one of those 2 wins came against Michigan, which is a bubble team. The other one was Iowa. So that's also why it's so critical for Ohio State to perform well in Indianapolis beginning today. And that's the problem with these unbalanced schedules, that all records are not created equal, unlike in the Big 12 and in the Big East in terms of the major conferences. They play each other twice. That's what's like. It's too bad, like about the SEC, for example, down where you guys are. The Kentucky and A&M only played once this year. Would have been great, obviously, if they were able to have a home and home. And look, obviously there are SEC teams that have the home and home. They tend to be these traditional rivals, and then a couple of crossovers. But this would be a good example for a year where it would have been good if Kentucky and A&M had played twice.
Well, I also want to ask you, they talk about the eye test, and I don't know what that means. I know what an eye test means, but so I look at 2 teams.
When Wimp Sanderson watches them, who does
that's right.
Well, I look at UAB here. We're in Birmingham. We're in Tuscaloosa, but when I look at those guys, my eyes tell me that is a very, very good basketball team that has a lot of guys back that upset Iowa State last year. And when I see your good friend Joe Lunardi do his seedings, I've had a problem with it a little bit, because a lot of times he's had them a 15 seed, which I don't even know if they'll make the tournament if they don't win their tournament. How much does the eye test factor in? And if I'm a team that plays myself to a 2 or 3 and I have to play UAB in the first round, I'm not going to be real happy. I want to get you to comment on that.
Yeah, no, I think they definitely passed the eye test. We saw them make the round of 32 last year, which is amazing, because I was out in the Bahamas, and to look at UAB that day when they played UCLA in that last place game, and to think that UCLA and UAB would meet again in the NCAA tournament, nobody sitting there thought that would occur. So, yeah, they passed the eye test. The problem, kind of like Gonzaga, a team that I still think, even though they're not the same without Shema Karnowski, certainly could win, certainly could win a game. They couldn't feel secure unless they won the WCC, and I feel the same way about UAB. I think they can win a game, and who knows what would happen if they win 2. But the problem is, they better win Conference USA's tournament just to make sure they feel more comfortable.
So, do you think UAB, if they don't win the tournament, they'll be left out of the field?
It's going to be close. I do think that they've done a good job of, and they said, and Castiglione said this, that if you won the regular season, title, that you're automatically going to be considered, late into the week, and that's the case obviously with Monmouth, Wichita State, which I think Wichita State will get in, but that's something that obviously that they're going to have to evaluate as they get down here if UAB were to lose.
You've been in it a long time, and I don't know how your feelings are about this. Now, I really haven't decided with the new thought that we have first 4 in, or the first 4 in being the 8 teams that go to Dayton. Your feelings about the first 4 in format, that those 4 winners go to the 60. Talk, you'll be a good guy to ask about that. Your feelings about that?
Mixed feelings. On one side, I like the fact that they increased the field to give a couple more opportunities. I do like the fact that it's not just the 6 teams that have to play the extra game, that it's also the bubble teams, sort of like you really having to earn your way in. What I don't like is that, and I went the first year to Dayton. I've not been since, so I did at least see it in its infancy. I don't like that it happened Sunday. You could play Tuesday night, and then that's it. You're done. Obviously, the majority of America looks at the tournament starting, Thursday at noon, and so noon Eastern. So I think it's got to feel very empty if you made the field on Sunday, and by the time you get to Thursday, you're already done. I think for the teams that win, it's a cool experience because they're moving. You know, they won. They're now on a road for next stop. You know, it's got probably an excitement feel to it. Like, hey, we're in Dayton. Now we're in Orlando. Now let's go. You know, let's keep going. I think that's kind of, there's a good buzz about something like that. I think for the losers, and I've talked to some of them, I mean, you know, the coaches, that there's definitely a little bit of an empty feeling about that.
Well,
I don't even know when you do your bracket. To me, those games always, do you pick those games? Do those games really count when you do your bracket?
Yeah, it's funny. As you know, obviously I've done the bracket with the president the last 7 years, and we've always done it on the Tuesday because we got to wait for the women on Monday, and a lot of times we don't post it until Wednesday morning and all that, and so we kind of like blow off those picks and let ESPN that's advanced. But also with our tournament challenge, you know, on ESPN.com, you sort of have, you know, those days till Thursday too. So a lot of brackets, I think, across the country, you know, don't penalize you or don't really include, you know, those games on Tuesday and Wednesday. Yeah.
Before we let you go, Andy, what's right for Rick Pitino? What's right for him to do? Maybe there is no answer, but maybe in your opinion, should he kind of get out of there and let him kind of clean it up a little bit, or should he stay there and see it through? What do you think's right there?
Well, I do believe that there's a responsibility, and you know, not the same issues, but I'll give you an example. So, like Jim Calhoun told me there was a part of him that thought he should have just walked off in 2011 after they won the championship for UConn down in Houston. But he knew the NCAA stuff was still happening and didn't feel right about sort of retiring and bolting. And he didn't know they were going to win the title that year. But just sort of walking away and leave someone else to clean up the mess. You know, Roy Williams has said the same thing, that while there's still the unknown with the NCAA, with the academic, even though he says that basketball is not going to necessarily get hit. I'm paraphrasing here, and he wasn't named. You know, he doesn't want to sort of abandon the university at this time. And so we'll see how that plays out as well. And I do think that Rick should see it through because if, for example, he gets a game penalty, which could happen, and that's the difference, you know, from when Wimp was coaching, that they never used to penalize the head coaches. Now, unless you were named in it, of course. Now, it's not whether or not he did know or didn't know. I mean, that'll factor in. But more than anything, the Committee on Infractions, when they get to this point, will potentially say that he should have known.
Yeah.
And that's the major difference. And so if they determine that he should have known, then they're still going to give him a game penalty. And if he's not coaching, then there won't be a game penalty. So it's sort of, you know, it'll be a little bit empty if they said that they would have penalized him that, but he's not there to serve it. So I think he sort of owes it to whether he did or didn't know or anything, and he's been adamant to say he didn't know anything, that he should at least stick this through. And I ultimately, I don't know this for a fact, but I do think he will. I don't think he will leave.
Yeah. Andy, we appreciate it so much. You've been mighty nice to be on. We appreciate you being on. We follow you all the time down here. Hopefully the Southeastern Conference can get, we didn't talk anything about that, but Kentucky is, you know, always premier here, but not quite as good this year, but they're also, you know, they got a chance to go a little way. So thank you so much for being on. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Andy.
All right, thanks, Win. Thanks,
Okay.
guys.